So should we wait a little bit more? Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait 5 minutes. We're going to wait for people to come into the conference. Okay, so we'll start the conference in 5 minutes. So hello everyone, we're going to start now and people will join us after otherwise. Okay. So my name is Hélène. I'm working for the French Embassy as the Cultural, Educational and Linguistical Affairs Attaché. And I'm here with my colleague from AEISEC, Abdullah.
Hello, my name is Ebrahim Hasan. I'm the responsible for business development in AEISEC Bahrain.
So thank you for joining us today. So in partnership with AEISEC, Zain Telecom Bahrain and Point de M.I.R, we decided to organize a conference about digital pollution. So why this topic? Because in the current context of coronavirus, where digital tools have taken an important and central place, it seemed important to organize a conference about the impact of our digital uses. So digital uses are part of our daily lives. It improves exchanges, allow a better sharing of information, and an instant communication. So many new practices we integrate into our life and our work within perspectives less travel, less waste of paper and time, more collaboration, more sharing, and more entertainment. But this upheaval also has impacts on our environment, multiplication of equipment, consumption of energy and raw materials, pollution, production of waste. So as users, we can act to minimize these impacts.
So AEISEC is the world's largest run youth organization, and we believe that youth are the key to the future and the solution to the present as well. We believe that as much as issues are accumulating from generation to another, youth will remain the responsible to make the shift in the mindset and reality. That is why we believe that youth, as much as they are responsible for these issues to arise, they are still responsible to fix it. As much as they're responsible to them, these issues to arise, such as they're very reliant on technology, they're using technology all day, we believe that they will be the one to make the shift. They'll be the one to raise the awareness and make the change to unravel the roots of this issue and set the base to conquer it and end its existence. So we believe in all of you, all the youth that are watching us right now, and we believe that the world needs you and you are the change that needs to happen.
So benchmarks, practical advice, good ideas to apply in everyday life. That's what we want to bring you today. And to talk about it in more details, we invited 3 speakers. So Céline Ferre, she's a French expert in digital pollution and co-founder of the French NPO Point de M.I.R. Ebrahim Hasan, a Bahraini IT specialist specialized in e-waste management. And Sheikh Abdullah Al Khalifa, Director Communications and Investor Relations at Zain Telecom Bahrain, in charge of the e-waste recycling initiative. So you will be able to ask questions to the speakers by using the Q&A tab down below. So we will answer all your questions at the end of the conference. Just when you ask questions, don't forget to write the name of the speaker to whom you want to address it to. So to start, I'm going to give the voice to Céline Ferre, our first speaker. She will talk to us about the best practices to minimize our digital pollution. Thank you.
Good afternoon to everybody. And first of all, I would like to thank you, Hélène, for having invited me to speak about this specific topic, digital pollution, today. So my name is Céline, and I am working on this topic and on environmental impacts of new technology, digital technology, for more than 3 years now, through a non-profit organization that I co-founded and also a company that I co-founded to raise awareness of people and company on this specific topic. And before that, I used to work for IT companies for more than 25 years in sales function. So I will try to share my screen to share the presentation now. Hélène, I think that you have to activate my screen sharing. Okay. Okay, so first of all, as you probably know, half of the population, worldwide population, is now connected to the internet through several devices, 8 on average, which makes a total number of devices, of worldwide devices, of more than 34 billion, which is huge in the world right now. But most of these users, use the new technology, use internet by sending mails, posting a picture on the social networks, or watching video or movie online, as if it was just magical, without asking themselves some questions, because they just see their device and what they are doing. They don't see the huge infrastructure that is necessary to use IT and digital technology. But actually, this is not magical at all. There is really a heavy infrastructure behind this. A recent study published in France in September 2019, estimated that the size of the digital universe will be multiplied by between 3 and 5 until 2025. It means a number of devices because of IoT and because of 5G. So what's the issue? What's the problem here between our digital usage and our environment, our planet? Well, the first issue is that to build devices, electronic devices, you need on average 50 different metals in a smartphone, 60 different metals in a computer. And of course, to get these metals, you have to extract minerals. And to extract minerals, you have to use a mining industry. This mining industry is a very dirty industry. This is why one reason why we don't see mining industry anymore in our country. For example, in France, I think that the last mine or almost the last one closed in 1980s. And now all this extracting activity has been exported very far away. That is the reason why we don't see that mostly in Africa, in South America, and also in China, as you can see on this map. And of course, mining industry is a dirty industry because, you know, to extract minerals, you have to destroy environment, you have to destroy the rocks. To extract minerals, you have also to use solvents, toxic product, to separate the rocks from minerals from the rocks. So this mining activity industry is really polluting the countries where it is done. So for example, you have all heard about Democratic Republic of Congo extracting cobalt, and also in South America, Peru extracting gold, for example. And also China, because as you see on this map, China is a big player in metal extracting, especially of what we call rare earth, which is a specific class of metals. This one, actually, if I can show you on the Mendeleev table, which is called lanthanides. And as of today, more than 95% of rare earths are extracted in China. This led me to another issue. On these specific metals that you see on the map and on the spreadsheet, on these 50 metals that are necessary to build a smartphone, 1/3 of them have limited stocks on the earth right now. It's a case for indium, for example, which allow us to build the screens, germanium, which allow us to build the fiber, and so on. So today, we really have also this issue of resources depletion, which is not very well known by people, but it's a reality. And today there is no alternative to these limited resources. So this is another environmental problem. Another issue that we can see on this map is the main role of China. And this is more a geopolitical issue than an environmental one, but it's important as well that today China, you know, own more than 95%, for example, as I said before, of the rare earths on the globe. So if they decide to stop with the supply of rare earths, we won't be able to do anything, and we won't be able to manufacture some devices. So you see already 3 main issues that we have to keep in mind. Another issue, as Hélène mentioned to introduce this conference, is the increase of the traffic. Cisco did a survey a few years ago, and to see that the traffic year on year was increasing of 25%, the internet traffic, and the amount of data stored in the data center increase of 35% year on year, which is huge. But it was even worse during the lockdown, because as Nokia noticed in this study, the internet traffic doubled the first Sunday of the lockdown compared to the previous one. And the usage of some application messaging, instant messaging application like WhatsApp was even multiplied by 5 on the first Sunday of the lockdown compared to the previous one. So of course, this has an impact, as we will see. So how do we do to measure impacts of the digital? There is a specific methodology to do that, which is called the life cycle analysis. And at each stage of the life of a device, which actually counts 3 in the digital. The first stage is extraction manufacturing. Second phase is usage, it's us using our devices. And last stage is end of life. And it could take several forms, you know, either waste, either recycling, and so on. And I think that my co-speaker will speak about that in a moment. So when we do this analysis, we are able to measure concretely with real number what are the impacts of the new technologies, of digital technologies. Unfortunately, some of the impacts that you can see on this slide are not easily measurable. This is a case of loss of biodiversity, for example. What is the link between my smartphone and the loss of biodiversity? It's quite simple. If you want to extract gold in Peru, destroying mountain, you understand that if you destroy the mountain, every life, every animal, everything that used to live at the top of the mountain, of course, will have to move or will just disappear. But unfortunately, we do not have currently the metric to be able to measure loss of biodiversity. So the main impacts that we measure today are resources depletion that we mentioned, also energy consumption, water consumption, and greenhouse gas emission. It's mostly that. And something very important that we have all to keep in mind is that amongst the 3 stages that I described, extraction, manufacturing, usage, and end of life, the stage which has the more impacts on environment is the first one, extraction, manufacturing, because of this mining industry and because of resources depletion. The studies that I mentioned before estimated that if digital world was a country, its impacts, its environmental impacts will be equivalent to 2 to 5 times the French impact, the impacts of France, which is huge just for digital. You see, and here on this slide, you can see 3 of the impacts that we are able to measure, which are primary energy consumption, greenhouse gas emission, and water consumption. Electric power consumption is not an environmental impact. We are speaking about primary energy, because primary energy is the energy that we have to create to generate electricity, but it's not the same thing. For example, in France, there is a ratio from 1 to 3. We have to create 3 kilowatt hour in primary energy to use 1 kilowatt hour electricity, because there is a loss between the creation of energy and the use of electricity. So the impact that we measure is a primary energy because it's bigger. So here on this slide, you see that digital, the worldwide digital use is consuming more than 4% of the primary energy produced in the world. And it generates between 3.8 and 4.2, according to the different studies, of greenhouse gas emission. This is more than plane transportation. Today, digital generates more greenhouse gas than civil plane transportation, almost twice. This is huge. Water consumption as well. It seems to be a tiny number, a very low number, 0.2% of the worldwide water. But you all know that water is really a rare resource on Earth right now. So even if this figure is quite low, I mean, in terms of quantity, it is huge, especially in France, because our electricity comes from nuclear, and nuclear, you know, it uses a lot of water. So the water consumption, the water consumed by the digital will be higher in France, for example, than in Germany or than in India or China, because the energy is produced differently, okay? And of course, we indicate also the percentage in terms of electric consumption, even if, I remember you, it is not an environmental impact. So now that we saw the dark side of digital in terms of impacts, we will see the way that we have, each of us, you know, to reduce this impact using our digital devices. So the first thing that we do, of course, is to buy a device. So the story starts here for us, you know, when we buy a device. But as I told you, the most, I mean, the phase that generated the more impact is really the extraction manufacturing, which means that if we buy less devices, of course, we will produce less, and the impact will be reduced. Of course, we all know that we have to use digital. The question is not stop using digital, because everybody knows that it's not possible. But we can ask, before buying a new device, we can ask some questions. For example, what do I need? What do I need exactly? Do I need a huge screen just to use Office suite? Do I need a very sophisticated smartphone if I just want to call or send text messages? Well, we have to ask ourselves this kind of question. What do I really need? Okay. And of course, what about buying less devices? Renew our devices less often. In France, we renew our smartphone every 18 to 24 months. I mean, a smartphone can be used longer than that. Huh? We are not pushed to buy a new smartphone every 2 years or every 18 months. This is not true. So we also have to resist marketing messages sent by, you know, the big brands that everybody knows. Another way to reduce our impact is either renting devices instead of buying devices, because if you rent a device, of course, when you want to change a device, the device you used to have will be sent to someone else. And why not buying also second-hand devices? In France, for example, this is really an increasing market. We see more and more websites that sell, you know, second-hand devices. So it could be also a solution, because if you extend the life of your device, of course, you will reduce the impacts linked to this device. So from acquisition, we go directly to end of life, because it's linked, and a way to extend, of course, the life of our device is to maintain them and to fix them. Of course, it's not that easy to fix a smartphone by yourselves, to fix a computer, but we can learn, you know. In France, there are some non-profit organization called Repair Café, who teach people how to fix their own smartphones. So you can buy specific tools and fix your own smartphone. It's possible. And sometimes it works very well, and sometimes it's not that expensive. It's less expensive to buy a new one. Okay, and of course, something that is important as well, and I think that my co-speaker will speak about that, is collecting the devices. Because to be able to recycle, we have to collect devices first. Otherwise, it's not possible to recycle. There are specific places where you can collect, when you can put your devices that you don't want anymore, and then it could be collected and recycled. Unfortunately, today it's very, very difficult to recycle metals in the smartphone. Less than 1% of the metals could be recycled. Why? Because they are in really tiny quantities in the smartphones. Most of the time they are mixed to each other as well. And also another issue is that they don't have the same properties once it's recycled than before. So there is a loss of properties. So it's very, very difficult to recycle metals. Today, I think that there are 9 or 10 companies in the world who do that. And it's not really economically interesting to do that, because it's really, really difficult up to now to do that. In terms of energy consumption, some really easy tips that could help you sparing some money and reducing the energy that you use, is just simply switching off your devices, switching off your TV, switching off your box when you are not at home. I mean, all these devices are built to be switched off. No problem, you can do that. And I think that an internet box in a whole year consume the same energy as a small fridge. So it's quite huge. I mean, so you will spare money and you will spare energy as well. Another small tip is to decrease the brightness of your screens, because when you buy a new screen, a smartphone, a computer, and it's set up with a maximum brightness. So if you just decrease a bit the brightness, it will still be comfortable to work on, but you will spare also some energy. What about internet navigation? In 2012, 2 engineers from Google did a study and they noticed that a single Google request was consuming as much IT power, I will say, than all the IT power that was required to prepare all the Apollo mission, including the one that helps going on the moon. It means that in 2012, each time that you were doing a Google request, it was as if you were going on the moon. So keep that in mind. It means that we have to reduce our request, internet request, if possible, because it consumes a lot of IT power and a lot of energy, and it generates a lot of greenhouse gas as well. So instead of doing, I don't know, 10, 12, 20, 50 Google requests a day, why not just registering, saving our website addresses in our bookmarks, favorite, history, to reuse them each time we want to go on this site, instead of just, typing a Google request. Okay, and when you have to do a Google request, when you have to look for something on the internet, be really precise. Instead of just keying one word, put a sentence or put several words with a plus or minus between each other, so that the request goes faster. Because when it goes faster, it's more sober. Okay, so we have to include this kind of habit in our day-to-day habits. It's not that complex, but we have to change a bit our way to do things. When we speak about digital pollution, we often speak about mails. Number of mails exchanged each hour in the world. It's more than 4 billion mails exchanged worldwide each hour. It's huge, but it's not the priority. Why? Because most of the time a mail is a very small file, so it does not take a huge space on your computer or in the data center. Of course, when there are plenty, it takes space, but it's not that important. Okay. But it's something to do, but it's not the priority, I will say. So what about reducing the number of mails that we send each day, the number of recipients? Of course, suppressing the attachment, not keeping mails with attachment, because 1 mega, 2 mega, if you have pictures attached to your mails, it could be big and take some space. Of course, suppressing spams is really important, and unsubscribing from newsletter as well. Printing, I will be quite quick on this one, but because it was one of the first things that we did. Printing black and white, printing recto verso, printing on recycled papers, checking before printing several pages on a page. I mean, we are all doing that, I think, for quite a long time. But it's good because you know that ink, it's one of the most expensive liquid in the world. It's more than 2,000 euro a liter, $2,000 US dollars a liter. It's huge. It's more expensive than channel number 5. Huh? So. So what about streaming? So streaming is quite a new habit. Looking for videos, watching movie online, or listening to music online. It's quite a new habit, you know. This is really, really, well, it generates really big impacts on the environment. Why? Because when you are doing all these things online, when you stream, all the infrastructure is working at the same time. The server that sends you the file, the movie, the video, the song, and the network between this server and your own infrastructure at home, your box or your device, either if it's a TV, a connected TV, or your smartphone or your computer. So if possible, it's less impacting if you download the content that you want to look at than to stream. So if possible, please do that. You will reduce your impact on environment. And another important thing to know as well is that to stream on your phone connected to 4G is 5 times more impacting than streaming on your phone connected to a Wi-Fi connection. Okay, so if you are at home and you want to watch a movie on your phone, for example, or on your smartphone, please connect to the Wi-Fi instead of using 4G. It will be less impacting. So smartphone. So with a smartphone, like streaming, but we discover new habits. At the beginning, you know, phones, they were used to call people, you know, or to send text messages. When we looked at teenagers, I have 3 at home, so they don't call people anymore. I mean, I did a study a few years ago on teenage population, and I asked questions to 10 of them. And the first question that I asked was, what is the main usage that you have with your smartphone? None of them said calling people, 0. So the smartphone is not used to call people anymore. It's a pity because calling people is not really impacting on the environment, and sending text messages as well. But sending voice messaging, using the social networks, using the instant messaging application, this is impacting because the files that you exchange are quite big, and they stay on data center, even if I mean, this application says that they don't keep. It's wrong. They keep all the data in the huge Facebook data center and so on. It's really it's huge. So it's important to know that. So we already spoke about the fact to maintain and fix our smartphone instead of buying a new one, of course. I think you understood the message. And another important thing, which is not linked to environment, but more linked to security, please try not charging your phone at night, because battery, you know, sometimes explode, and it could be dangerous in terms of fire. We had several accidents here in France, a house that burned because of a battery exploding. So please be careful about that. So I think I'm done. Here are the main sources on which we collect the data I presented to you. Our non-profit organization is not organizing study, but you know, our objective is really to inform people, to train people using this data to raise awareness on the environmental aspect, on impacts of the digital. So thank you for your attention, and I will take your question, I think, at the end of all presentation, right, Hélène?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so
Thank you very
much. It was astonishing, merci. I think it was very interesting for me as well to listen to what you're saying. So I think I'll stop putting my phone in charge at night. It's something new. And then I would like to welcome our next speaker, Ebrahim Hasan, the Bahraini IT specialist, specialized in e-waste management. You can go, Mr. Ebrahim.
Sure. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session. In my session, just let me share my screen. I hope you can see my screen now. Sorry. Yes. I will cover a small aspect of digital pollution, which is the e-waste, or as we can call it, electronic e-waste. So first of all, let me introduce the term e-waste to you. In very basic terms, it's basically all the equipment, electronics and electrical equipment that's permanently not in use. So something like manufacturing electronics, equipment that's not needed anymore, and even something like that's equipment that's out of support. There are 10 categories for e-waste. Actually, there are multiple categorizations. One of them that's based on 10 categories that are planned to be 14 categories soon. What are they? The first one is large household appliances. Large household appliances that are large in size, like something like a microwave, like a washing machine, etc. The second category, as you can see, is small household appliances. Something small, a household that's small in size, like a toaster, like an air fryer, and etc. Final, which is my specialty, is the IT and telecommunication equipment. The equipment used in IT and telecommunication sector, like storage servers, router, firewalls, and even like switches and other equipment. Next category, which is called consumer equipment. Equipment that's used for equipment similar to televisions, radios, hi-fi systems, and etc. The next category is lighting equipment, like basically anything used for illumination, like bulbs and all types, LED, tungsten, halogen, and others. And the following category is electrical and electronics tools, electronics that are used for measurement and control, like electrical drill, soldering iron, etc. With a small exception here. I will talk about it later on, but currently the next category will be toys, leisure, and sport equipment. Something like game consoles that has their own category. Even computers that are used for biking, like small computers used to measure the distance, etc., falls under this category. The next category is medical devices. So any medical device, with the exception of implanted and fixed products, are considered as e-waste, fall under the medical devices category. Here we have the exception that we referred back earlier, that all the devices that used for monitoring and control instruments, something like smoke detectors, digital scales, and etc. So there's a small confusion some people might have. So what's the difference between this category and the category that was mentioned earlier? In other words, anything that as a tool belongs into that category. However, if that tool is designed for monitoring and control purposes, falls under this category. And the last category is the auto dispensers, something like a vending machine, an ATM machine. That category, those devices are under this category. The first question, why e-waste as a problem? There are multiple reasons. As Céline mentioned earlier, the nature of e-waste, that electronic devices consist of polymer, which is plastic, in other words, alloys and metals. The complexity of the equipment makes the devices very difficult to recycle and reuse some cases. The third issue with e-waste is basically the amount of e-waste produced annually. For example, every year we produce about 52 million metric tons, which is about 4,700 Eiffel Towers. So with the e-waste that's produced every year, we can build 4,700 Eiffel Towers out of it in terms of weight. The problem, especially in the problem with e-waste, especially the IT and telecommunication field, is there is some data, there's a risk associated with e-waste, especially in terms of data leakage risk. And that's what makes some companies try not to recycle, especially their hard drives, because it consists or it has sensitive data, especially for corporations and firms that are working in financial, medical, and military fields. That doesn't mean we cannot recycle and dispose hard drives. The answer is yes, we can, because there are multiple ways to destruct data, such as overwriting the data, degaussing the data, and do data destruction or physical destruction to the data. So can we also say that it's like recycling is the answer for e-waste problem? Unfortunately, yes and no at the same time. Why? Because there are two phases of recycling. The proper way that should be done in facilities that are designed for e-waste, that take multiple measures to make sure that there isn't any fumes or any taxation for the environment or the soil precisely. That's one phase of it. Unfortunately, in many cases, it's the other phase of the e-waste recycling. As you can see in the bottom picture, that in some Asian and African countries, where electronics are burned to collect the heavy metals, especially gold and other heavy metals, because, for example, the old server processors were made of, part of it made of gold. So unfortunately, in some countries, the e-waste is collected, burnt to collect those metals, especially gold. The impact of that, there's a catastrophic disaster for the soil and for the air. So we have, due to of that, we have e-waste, another crisis based on the e-waste recycling. Does that mean that we should not recycle? The answer is yes. No, we should recycle because if it was done properly. So, okay, so how should we tackle it? As we can do with plastic, before the recycling, we should take the common principles of plastic waste. Should reuse, reduce, and refuse. So as you can see here, first of all, if any device that can be fixed, we should fix it instead of replacing them. The second point basically is we have to donate our unused equipment. Like in other countries and soon in Bahrain, there will be like donation banks that will collect all the unused equipment, will refurbish them and donate them for the needed people, especially like computers and laptops. If we can donate, we can sell it and refurbish it if we can. And here we mean refurbishment done by the vendor, not done by the customers. The third point is basically to extend the support and extend the lifespan of the equipment, because as said earlier, sometimes we replace a device not because it was malfunctioned, but especially the corporate world, it's also replaced because it was out of support. So we have a fully functional equipment, but due to lack of support, some companies, what they should do is to replace them, unfortunately. And the fourth channel, which is missed in some cases, we should set a proper channel to collect the e-waste recycling, because, for example, not all people are actually collecting or disposing batteries in the right channel. Some of them just dispose them the regular garbage bins, which goes back to the landfill. As a result, to toxin, the landfill in this case. So those batteries should be disposed in the right channels, which is something that should be promoted even more, either in Bahrain or even worldwide. Here I conclude my session. It was quick, it was fast, but it was to give you a small introduction to e-waste in terms of the problem, in terms of the recycling and the related to research to recycling and how should be tackled. Back to you, Helen. Helen, did you hear me? And also one point I'd like to add that using a dark screen actually reduces the power consumption. So if you have our presentation, you want to make it more power efficient, make it with a dark background. Back to you, Helen.
Yes, I think you are done, Mr. Ibrahim.
Yes, I'm done. It was a quick but brief presentation about introduction to e-waste.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think also it's very interesting how you brought the idea of physical e-waste, not only servers overheating or servers effect, but also how physical e-waste can be a problem. Thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim.
Welcome.
We can go to our next and last speaker, but not least, Sheikh Abdullah Al Khalifa, the Director of Communication and Investors Relations at Zain Telecom Bahrain, and in charge of the e-waste recycling initiative. He can tell us more about it. So welcome, Mr. Abdullah. You
can... So good afternoon, everyone. I hope you could hear me. First of all, I want to give the thanks to Helen, to the French Embassy for this event today. I think it's a very important event, especially now with the World Environment Day. I want to also thank AEISEC as well. We depend on youth. Youth is the hardcore, even as us as Zain. We believe in youth and support youth every step of the way. And I think youth can impact this issue going forward. So in Zain Bahrain, I mean, not only do I look after the e-waste initiative, but I look after a number of roles relating to corporate sustainability, in addition to my communications and investor relations responsibility. But I always believe that one of the more interesting aspects of my role and my job at Zain that keeps me interested always to come back and make impact and make positive change is corporate sustainability. What sets the situation apart here, and I don't want to take too much of your time on this topic, you know, you might be asking yourself, you know, what is a telecoms company here doing, talking in a panel relating to digital pollution, if they maybe are one of the contributors in this pollution. However, at the same time, I always believe that every entity, every person, individual, community, company, country, we all have to do our part. We all have to do our responsibility in safeguarding our planet. At the end of the day, we live in it, and everything we do, whether positive or negative, has a tremendous impact to not only our lives, but the lives of the future generation. So all of us have contributions to this degree. While I might not have a presentation at this point in time for the digital pollution specifically, maybe I can point out later on in my discussion relating to digital pollution, where you could learn more about our initiatives specifically. So I'll just maybe briefly talk about what we have done as Zain Bahrain with relation to specifically on e-waste or electronic waste. And I'll be honest with you, it's one of those projects that I feel that has impacted the society and Bahrain as a whole quite a lot throughout the years. So the Zain e-waste initiative started back in 2011. And the project came out of the idea that, you know, as a telco company, we deal with a lot of electronics, a lot of digital equipment, and infrastructure all over Bahrain. And so the idea was we need to think of a way to giving back to the community to find a way to safeguard the planet. Why don't we look into finding a way about our electronic waste that we have? And so the concept of the e-waste initiative was born. And the idea was, while it is a very difficult situation right now, I believe there's always possibilities if you work with partners. You know, as a telco, by ourselves, in dealing with e-waste, it's a difficult issue, so we have to work with partners. So we've done this collaboration initially with the Supreme Council for Environment. We have done it with their support. We are aligned, of course, with their goals and vision. We've also initiated it way back, you know, in its infancy or the inception with UNIDO. We have developed this collaboration from the beginning with them as well. And the concept behind it is very simple. We created a campaign, and this campaign has been going on for a number of years. I think not every single year, but I believe almost every other year, the campaign has been going on. Launch a campaign where we will, you know, inform the public. We went to about 19 to 20 public schools in Bahrain about the impacts of e-waste, and launch a competition, a nationwide competition, where we said whoever can collect the most electronic waste, you know, gets to be recognized and appreciated, and there are rewards for it. And the second competition was to develop a strategy or a campaign or a marketing presentation about, you know, communicating about the impacts of e-waste and how to stop e-waste. So a number of students throughout Bahrain, you know, came together in their own schools and developed ideas about campaigns, collecting e-waste. And you would be surprised, we've collected all sorts of electronic waste, such as not only laptops or smartphones or tablets, but also things like refrigerators, microwave machines, anything essentially with a circuit board has come to us. And we've collected it at our premises at the Zain headquarters in the Sif area. And so throughout this period, a collection of electronic waste was brought. And then the other more important element, of course, is to work with a partner to do something with this e-waste. And so we've collaborated with Crown Industries. Crown Industries is one of the main licensed companies in Bahrain that not only take care of electronic waste, but they also look after other types of waste like plastic and paper, and even what was suggested by Ebrahim, even hard drives. There's a way that they could you know, recycle it and in an ethical and environmentally friendly manner. So the idea that came out of our collaboration with Crown Industries was, when we collect all of these devices from all sorts of you know, contact points, whether it's from schools, from individuals, you know, all of them come to our premises and bring their devices. The key aspect is we want to make sure that whatever is being done is done properly and ethically and in compliance with a certain standard that is accepted globally. And this is something as well that is agreed upon by the Supreme Council for Environment. And there is one alliance or a compliance type of system that we are working on, which is called the Basel Agreement. And this agreement, which is signed up by various countries around the world, has certain standards, whereby, once you're compliant with these standards and these agreements, you could proceed ahead with the initiative. And so Crown Industries, in collaboration with various companies from outside Bahrain, maybe some of the, one or two of the countries that maybe part of the countries that can take care of the electronic waste in an ethically and environmentally friendly manner, they would import it from Bahrain. So the Crown Industries are licensed to export this electronic waste out, after passing through a number of stages of acceptance from the Supreme Council for Environment. And then they would receive it from in the other country, and then they would ethically and environmentally way recycle the devices and electronic devices. And most importantly, we would receive some sort of a certification, evidence to show that this has been done in the proper way. For us, that's the most important aspect, honestly. It's not about just removing e-waste from point A to point B, not at all. We want to make sure that, that this electronic waste is being recycled and reused in some way or form. Of course, throughout this process, not to forget, customers or end users are always recommended that if they wish to, they could contact us and we could explain to them, if they are concerned about their data, of how to discard of their data. So how to delete everything that is in their devices. Sometimes there are conscious end users which we believe their data is quite precious. And so we want to make sure that there's nothing that is in that device going forward into being recycled, of course. So yeah, I mean, we still have this campaign going on. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 situation, we've had to hold off this campaign this year. However, it doesn't stop you from anyone, to be honest with you, to pass by at Zain Bahrain's headquarters in the Sif area. We have a very large collection point whereby you could drop off your devices in any form. It doesn't have to be in any, as long as it's a digital circuit board of some sort, you could drop it off. And then we will take care of the rest together with Crown Industries and make sure that this is not effectively negatively impacting the environment. I mean, the other alternative, unfortunately, is it goes to these landfills that we have here in Bahrain. And may God help us not to see such landfills. They're in a they're the worst thing you could imagine, honestly speaking. Landfills have everything thrown in there. It's gives me some worry and a bit of sadness to see such waste just thrown in that sense. And so if there's one thing we could do, at least as a corporate, all electronic e-waste now, we have one location in Bahrain that you could discard your electronic waste. So no need to go to the landfills. And we welcome individuals, corporates, companies that have a lot of e-waste that we could work together with them. In fact, we've worked with companies like Bahani Brothers. We worked with them in, they had a large amount of electronic waste. Late last year, they called us up and they said, we have a lot of devices, displays, screens, and we need to take care of them in an ethical, environmentally friendly way. And so we went to them. We brought a massive truck and we went to their premises and we've collected all of because it was such a huge load. And so it brings me pleasure, of course, in seeing this more and more happening, because then all of these devices that would have been thrown out, unfortunately, now they could be recycled in the best way possible. Of course, let's be frank, we don't make anything out of this. We are purely doing this as a social responsibility aspect from our company. We are willing to spread the word, and we have our campaigns that we do from time to time. And yeah, I mean, we welcome such initiatives going forward. And that's why when I heard about today's event, I said, let me come by and share this experience. If you want to know more about these things and more about what Zain stands for, we believe in the concept of meaningful connectivity. We don't just connect for the sake of connections. We connect people in a meaningful manner and in a more ethical manner. And we have this reported in our annual sustainability report. So in the sustainability report that is audited and checked and by third parties, we have a report that discusses everything that we do in corporate sustainability, such as these projects like e-waste. And I think finally, maybe as a point before I conclude, I think with the whole COVID situation going globally, it's a global imperative, in my opinion, that we look after not only our health and people around us and looking after their health and environment, but also look after what we do to the environment itself. So I think it's in our responsibility that we take care of the environment, take care and safeguard our planet as much as possible. And every bit counts. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
I hope you're also willing to cooperate with NGOs because we're very interested as AEISEC to work with such manner. It's a very interesting topic, and I'm very glad and happy to see a Bahraini company working on that here in Bahrain. This is very, very interesting and very promising, and I'm very glad to hear about it. Thank you, Mr. Abdullah. So right now we can actually move to questions. We got a lot of them, okay? It's gonna be hectic, but it's gonna be nice. So we have a lot of questions directed to all of you, dear speakers. So you can start, Elena.
Yeah. So the first question is for Céline. It's from Ala. So her question is there anything we can do with regards to the effects of digital currency on the environment? For example, with Bitcoin people are encouraged to mine for currency. The mining process often requires supercomputer builds, and people keep these devices running for 24/7. So that was the first question for Céline. I don't know if Céline is still around. Céline?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you get the question, Céline?
Okay, I'm here. Wow, it's a difficult question. Well, actually, the first thing I will say about Bitcoins, about artificial intelligence and so on, is that of course it uses a lot of IT power, okay? Because it has to be managed on very huge servers, computers, and so on. So of course it's not, we present this solution for being, helpful sometimes for the environment and so on. It is what we call IT for green. But actually, in our opinion, in our non-profit organization, most of the time this is not true. I mean, we can find solutions which are not necessarily using IT to answer this kind of problem or application. It is what we call low tech. Let me just give you an example. It's not about Bitcoin, but it's more about IA in the medical space. You probably heard of that in France, but I know that it has been done in other countries as well. There was a test done with dogs to detect breast cancer, you know. So we are speaking a lot about IA in medical space, that IA will be the answer to everything. Actually, this is wrong. You know, by you know, teaching dogs to detect breast cancer, to detect probably COVID. I've heard of experimentation with COVID as well, and with other diseases as well. We can do things sometimes better than with IT. So it will be my answer. I mean, don't think that IT will answer all our requirements. It's wrong. It is a message that I will say most of the company want to put in our head, but mostly it's wrong. And I mean, Bitcoins, it does not work today, Bitcoins. I mean, it's really small what Bitcoins, I mean, Bitcoins is not used. It's not a success, actually. So it's a proof that I mean, it does not work.
Thank you, Céline. So there is another question for you. How much of an effect will 5G have on the environment? What predictions do you have for the future due to its impacts?
It's, I mean, the impact is huge. It's really a catastrophe. Why? Because to use 5G, all the infrastructure like relay antenna and so on will have to change. And also the devices, the personal devices will not cope to 5G anymore. So we will have to change, to buy new devices to be able to use 5G. So in my presentation, I tried to show that the personal devices, the manufacturing of personal devices is really what is the most impacting on the environment. These 34 billion devices in the world. Imagine if we have to change all our devices, personal devices, to be able to use 5G, it will be worse. It will be, we will have to manufacture numbers of new smartphones, tablets. It's the reason why, you know, the digital universe will be multiplied by 2 to 5, and this is really what is the most impacting. Because just a few figures so that people understand better my words. There are 34 billion devices in the world, personal devices, you know. With 5G and IoT, it could be multiplied by 2 or 5. I let you do the calculation, you know. It's huge. Some people say, no, but it's not what is the most impacting. It's the company servers or company machines. This is wrong. There are only 65 million servers used by companies in the world. So compared to 34 billion devices, it's nothing. So it's really up to us, the final users, to be careful. And in some countries, like in France, you know, people and even company and even a mobile operator are starting a discussion around 5G to see if it's really necessary to deploy, because it's, you know, it's really you know, not too good concerning environment.
Thank you, Céline. A question now for Mr. Ebrahim Hasan. In Bahrain, where can we donate or recycle all electronics and devices?
For recycling, already answered the question. You can donate them to Zain to support their initiative, and we use them or recycle them properly. Regarding donation, unfortunately, there isn't a proper channel for donation yet. I have good rumor that I have heard a good rumor that there's a new project upcoming, a new upcoming project that will work with multiple companies. That project will be introduced to Zain. They are happy to collaborate with Zain, especially already doing the collection. So let me talk about that project. That project basically will collect all the special computers. They will be refurbished, maintain, and make them in a good state to be used by people in need. Like will be donated to schools, to non-profit organizations, etc. So for now, donate them to Zain, give them to Zain, and in the future, inshallah, that project will be ours and will be see the public, and those machines will be able to collect the machines. So that's how that's my answer for that question. So for the recycling part, go to Zain.
Thank you, Ibrahim. May I add, Helen, just to add to this point? Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, electronic waste, please, most welcome at any time. You have the collection point there. The other aspect about donating, I believe, while there is nothing happening, and you're right, Ibrahim, on that today on a national level, we're actually more than happy to explore the concept of collecting working devices for the cases of donations. In fact, what we have done is we're about to consider the concept of, even within our company and at Zain, like we have devices that are in good for function. Why don't we, rather than just keeping them in our drawer, let's donate them. And especially now, I'll be honest with you, with COVID, everybody's now working from home. We've noticed that the biggest request that we have received, apart from the fact of connectivity, of course, is the idea that they don't have devices. Imagine a family of 2 or 3 or 4 kids, plus the father and the mother who are also working. All of them require devices to work, and so not all of them work at different times of the day. They all work at the same time. So devices is something that came up, and rather than buying new devices, let's collectively work in supporting these families through donations. I'm all for it, to be honest with you.
And especially I'd like to add that nowadays, the last 10 years, even machines that are like 5 to 6 years old are actually in a good state, even for today's functionality. And like for example, in the early 2000s, 10 years old machine is totally different than 10 years old machine nowadays. So even the lifespan of computers has expanded massively in the last 10 years. So even machines that was considered as old, like 50 years ago, nowadays still, 5 years machines nowadays is totally different than 5 years old machines 15 years ago. So yes, old machine can be reused, refurbished, and refurbished properly.
Thank you. I like these kind of discussions. It's very interesting. The next question is from Reem. It's a bit long question. It's okay. I got the description of it, of what exactly is the content. Reem, she's asking that she's a person who likes to, yes, exactly. So you can go, Ms. Céline.
I read the question, so I can answer, but so I am using a Fairphone for more than 2 years now. It was just to test it, to see how it worked and so on. To be really honest, it does not work that well. Well, it works actually. For me, it works, but sometimes, it does some bad things. It puts itself in plane mode just right in the middle of a conversation. Well, okay. So it's an Android smartphone with 2 SIM cards, so it's okay. And it's for the other people who don't know Fairphone, it has been created by a Dutch company. It was before a non-profit organization, which became later a company. And this smartphone is very interesting because it's really easily fixable. I mean, you can open it very easily. You can change your battery very easily. You can change your screen. I won't do that because okay, but you can do by yourself. You can change the different pieces by yourself, and it's supposed to last longer because you are able to fix it by yourself. It's true, but you know, for example, it's my third battery. Okay, I changed it twice in 2 years because they are using batteries that are less polluting than other, but at the same time it lasts not that long. So it's really balanced. It's really balanced, and before using a Fairphone, really you have to read the testimonials and so on, because otherwise you could be disappointed, honestly. I am really engaged, so I go on using my Fairphone, but sometimes, you know, I just want to throw it through the window. but the concept is okay. You know, the concept is good to try to create, to imagine a device. It's what we call eco-design. Okay, so they really try to lower all the environmental impacts by manufacturing this device and to make it last longer. Now, you know, it's just Fairphone. It will be great that the other brands do the same thing. Okay, so in France there are some laws that are being voted right now to force the manufacturer to put a fixing label on their device. It means that when you will buy a device, you will have a score, and with this score you will know if your device is fixable or not. So you will be able to if you are able to repair it or not. So probably it will do things change, but you know, it's not always the case with all the device right now.
And also, I'd like to add to this point, in the last 2 years, there was a debate related to right to repair, that in many cases, one of the problems, devices are not repairable because due to the lack of schematics, which is a blueprint of the device itself. From the business studies said this is business-related information, business critical information, that they can't share it. And from the other side, without those schematics, they can't fix it. Especially in many cases, the issues could be with a single component and a single chip. Because of that component, the entire device stopped working. So what happened due to lack of proper spare parts and the lack of the schematics, lots of machines are disposed because are not functional anymore. So with such rights, lots of devices will have an extended lifetime, and it can be used for additional years, but because with the lack of the schematics, the devices can't be used anymore.
Yeah, and sorry, also about the Fairphone, I don't know which one you have, Céline, but now it's the second one. So now there is Fairphone 3, so they're always trying to improve their phone, and they are listening to users' comments to improve the phone. So maybe the second one wasn't that great. I think the third one is getting better and better.
Yes, and the third one is tantalum free. So they managed to put the tantalum off of the phone, which is really great as well, because you know, it's a rare metal. And
thank you. Okay, so someone is just saying that the session was excellent. Kindly conduct sessions like this often. Kindly share the recording video link all the PowerPoints, so it will be very grateful. My question is, when is the next session? Thank you very much. We really appreciate your comments. We will try to organize maybe another one. It will be great. I will ask Céline, Ebrahim, and Sheikh Abdullah to share the PowerPoint, the presentation. So maybe we can create like a drive so we can share it to everyone. It will be great.
Yes. So going to the next question by Yusuf. He's asking, I think he's asking Sheikh Abdullah, what can be done in terms of Zain CSR to help in reducing digital pollution?
So thank you, Yusuf, for this question. So I'm thinking about it from the perspective of the company and the perspective of the end user. From the company's perspective, of course, we have the e-waste drive, the initiative that we have. On top of that, we have also already worked together with Ericsson. Ericsson is our vendor that we use for our infrastructure, and Ericsson is known recently in developing infrastructure that minimizes the level of energy consumption in its equipment. So we've conducted a trial maybe about a year or year and a half ago, whereby we've installed mobile infrastructure, which effectively drops the energy consumption by about 70%. And effectively, it has done its job, and at the same time, lowered the amount of energy consumption. And so we have decided that from now onwards, any expansion plans that we have in terms of connectivity, we will use such equipment that will lower the amount of energy and lower the amount of CO2 emission and any negative impacts going forward. So from a company's perspective, that's the one area. The end user perspective, I have a couple of recommendations. Try to find ways to not purchase devices every time. Although I don't want to say, we're shooting ourselves on the foot here, because I'll be honest with you, we noticed a lot of people who purchase devices and then maybe a few months later purchase another phone. And this situation is, in my opinion, not sustainable over the long term, when all of a sudden you have lots of devices collecting with you. And so I suggest to end users, customers, or any individual, when you purchase a device, plan to keep that device for at least 4 to 5 years minimum. Try to keep these devices with you as much as possible. Even if you wanted to purchase a new device, try to give your device to maybe your family member who may require a device. Give it to them. Always try your best not to purchase new devices every now and then. And I'll be honest with you, the cycle of purchasing new phones is just not sustainable. You have to find ways to when you buy a phone, keep it with you for a long time. Second of all, make sure that if you have anything, reuse your equipment. So reduce your purchases of your phones and reuse these devices. If you don't want to use them, let anybody else use them as well. So I think a combination of two things. So the company's perspective and the end user's perspective. And of course the e-waste drive, if you could contribute your digital equipment there, I think all of this will contribute to lowering the digital pollution. But there is one element maybe I wanted to talk about. Maybe, I don't know if you were, maybe Céline, you were, maybe, I don't know if you talked about it. I feel this one was a whole different topic for another day. Even the usage of your phone, like I think you mentioned spam, email, social media, unfortunately, people are hooked on it, unfortunately. And so I feel that we as humans, we need to find time in the day to lowering the amount of screen time and lowering the amount of consumption of data. So there's hardware, physical pollution, and there's software type of applications, so, pollution, digital pollution. So I feel like we can also find ways to minimize the usage of social media and getting content online as much as you can. So I think I've talked more than one element there. I hope I answered that question.
Thank you. Another question to Ebrahim. Is there a plan to launch a digital pollution awareness campaign? I found this session very informative, and I really feel the information shared here should be communicated to members of the public.
The answer is yes. It's still under development and planning at the moment, especially as maybe I forgot to mention that earlier. I'm a board member at NPO Bahrain, which is a Bahraini NGO that specializes in the environmental awareness. That for the last 2 years, we're focusing more on the beach cleanups. However, recently we have decided to expand it toward the e-waste, especially that are part of that organization nowadays. So yes, we are planning to have a full program that's related to e-waste awareness, as well as how to pick the right equipment for the right purpose, in terms of and from the environmental aspects. For example, what power supply to pick, how to make your machine more power efficient, when to shut it down, when and not to shut it down. Should we shut it down or should we sleep it, etc. So the answer is yes. We're planning to have a session about that in the recent future. Back to you, Helen.
Okay, thank you, Ebrahim. The next question is Naaman Aurora, if I'm not mistaken, I'm sorry. In the event of a trade embargo, if I'm not mistaken as well, how feasible would it be to recycle electronics to continue producing devices, especially for cloud computing and necessary applications like medical infrastructure? What would the costs look like? Whoever has an answer from the speakers, please go.
I can try to answer, but perhaps not in case of embargo. I understand that this question was relating to what I told about China, I think, and the geopolitical issue, perhaps. It happened actually in 2010, I think. China stopped the supply chain of rare earths to Japan, just for, you know, diplomatical questions. So it could happen, but you know, in a smartphone there is the equivalent of €1 rare earth, which is very small. But without this €1 rare earth, it does not work. So you're right, it's a risk. It's a risk. So what could we do? Reopen our rare earth mines. It's a solution. Because rare earth it's not rare, actually. There are plenty everywhere, almost everywhere. There used to be rare earth mines in the United States. Even I think in Europe, I'm not that sure, but so I know that there are discussions to reopen some mines to be less dependent from countries like China.
Thank you. Question for Céline and Ebrahim. What is the dollar-to-dollar cost for recycling electronics? That question.
I give the honor to Céline to answer this question.
Very kind of you. I don't know. To be honest, I don't have this kind of metric. I mean, when you buy, I mean, in France, I just speaking for France because I don't know elsewhere, but in France, when you buy a refurbished smartphone, for example, you buy it half the price, okay, compared to a new one. Now I don't have really the metric to give you. The only thing I will say, and I saw other question regarding price, so it will perhaps answer also the other questions. When we start to work on and to think about environment, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, the price should not be the main criterion. I mean, the main metric, because it's important, of course, the price of things, it's important for everybody, but it should not be the most important, because if you want to be virtuous, I don't know if you say that in English, virtuous, sometimes it's more expensive than not being virtuous. So and another thing that is important is that there are also many wrong ideas that we have in our mind. For example, one of them is fixing devices is more expensive than buying a new one. This is wrong. In any case, it will be wrong. I am not saying that it's not expensive. Sometimes it is to change the screen of an iPhone. It's expensive, right? You're right. But it's not more expensive than buying a new one. This is wrong. But sometimes, you know, even the big brands, they say publicly that it's less interesting for them to fix a device than for people to buy a new one. It's just an economic thing and not a real thing, I mean. So this is wrong. This is wrong. It's expensive, right? But it's not more expensive. That's wrong.
Okay.
So I'd like to add that it could be more expensive financially. However, the environment is more important than money, because without even if you have a fortune, but with no air, no water, no soil, you're dead. So what's the point of money in this case?
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, being right in these times can be costly. We can go to the next question. Kiba is asking, how many years a gadget can be used in general? As the digital world is rapidly growing, it will be grateful the sustainable development programs on e-waste could be conducted by your companies. So I think the question is mainly how many years can you use a gadget for, how many years in general?
Actually, it varies from device to another. For some, for example, like mobile phones can go up to 4 years in some cases, especially if the device is repurposed for other purposes, especially one of the bright sides of technology that a single device has multiple functionalities. For example, a phone that was used as a mobile phone earlier can be used as a remote control, especially the older models that had IR sender. So it varies from device to another. With mobile phones can go up to 4 years. For machines, computers, especially desktops, and that's why in many cases desktops are more preferred than laptops, because desktops can be repaired easily and has a longer lifespan than laptops. With desktops can go up to 10 years in some cases. With desktops can go up to about 6 to 7 years. So the answer varies from device to another, to be honest.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Hélène. Just to give you a real example, I am using a laptop which is more than 8 years now, and it works. My associate is using a smartphone that is more than 8 years as well, and it works. So as long as it works, you know, there is no need to change it.
Next question from Naman Aurora. Is there a way to measure and compare the environmental impact of e-waste versus traditional waste? If someone has an answer.
Can I just say that, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, if it's not e-waste, then you would throw it in the landfill or, you know, God forbid, the sea or something. And that's more negatively impactful than you know, taking care of it the right way. Now, electronic waste globally is not the #1 waste in the world, of course. There are other types of waste. However, electronic waste is, in my opinion, just as dangerous and just as negatively impacting to the environment like any other type of waste. We shouldn't think that e-waste is a specialized type of waste. Not at all. I think even Céline, you said earlier that we live now in a world where digital pollution or equipment or devices is just going to explode in terms of numbers. So I think you know, e-waste is still a major contributor to overall waste globally. I don't know if Céline, you had more to say on that front.
No, I agree with you. The thing is that in electronic waste, there are plenty of toxic products like arsenic or something like that, that are really, really dangerous for the environment, for life as well. And so when you see, for example, the Ghana landfill, which is a very well-known Abogloshi, which is an e-waste dump, open dump. It's really an environmental catastrophe, because people, they are sick, they have cancer. The soil is entirely polluted. The water is polluted. It's a nightmare. I mean, people who live there, they live there because for them waste is a resource. But it's you know, they live there in a really, really bad conditions.
Okay, thank you so much. Next question by Hiba is for Sheikh Abdullah. Is 5G already in Bahrain, and is it used in Zain? Wouldn't 5G contribute to increased usage and therefore higher digital pollution?
I'm glad that that question came up. I'm sure a lot of people have the same question, maybe. So 5G, I'll be honest with you, you know, we live in a world where it's quite competitive. Nations are, you know, competing with each other in terms of how connected you are, how advanced you are, and so there is a global and a national imperative to always succeed in launching the latest technologies. It's been decided earlier on, not this year, even last year, maybe, that 5G will come to Bahrain. It's a national, you know, goal to achieve 5G in Bahrain. As operators, we of course work with vendors like Ericsson and so forth in developing our networks, and so we've worked in doing trials for 5G already, and now it's commercially launched. I mean, all 3 operators have 5G launched in Bahrain. Of course, keeping in mind, you know, the technology of 5G is different from the 4G in terms of the number of infrastructure and towers and so forth. And so in Bahrain, at least from what I am aware of, we have worked together with the Telecom Regulatory Authority in making sure that there is a shared level of infrastructure across Bahrain. Of course, Bahrain is an island. The footprint is not that big, as much as maybe as Singapore. And so we don't believe that there has to be multiple repetitive amount of towers and infrastructure. And so we believe in the concept of sharing infrastructure. And of course, the TRA monitor our networks. They monitor the impact of the radiation or the impact of the power that it's consumed in the towers. And they have reports that have been issued at least twice a year, if not once a year, where they say that, you know, that the infrastructure in Bahrain is well below the average level of network, you know, spectrum that is considered acceptable, as they say. So Bahrain has amongst the lowest, you know, globally. And so we comply with this. We work together with the TRA on this front. And so, you know, we have no choice but to launch 5G. We you know, there are situations where if you do not launch 5G, you stand to lose your business, and which has happened in various countries around the world. Operators lost business just because they did not upgrade their network. And we thought, no, we have to launch 5G, of course. It's been launched in Kuwait. Zain Kuwait launched it. Zain Saudi launched it. I think they were the first in the Gulf region to launch it. And now we launched it here in Bahrain. So it is available. And we are ramping up the services as they go. But let's be clear, we are conscious of the impact, and we always try to find ways to minimize the level of disruption or you know, related to pollution and so forth. So don't expect us to go all out. We're actually trying to at least launch it bit by bit, you know, slowly but surely, as they say.
Okay. Another question for you. Does the collection include light bulbs, batteries, and household appliances?
Simply anything with a circuit board. So if it has a circuit board, then yes, we can collect it.
Okay, thank you. So Susanna is asking, okay, Susanna, thank you very much for very insightful presentations. Zain initiative is impressive. A question that pops into my mind is, how can we find the right balance of reducing our internet or IT in general usage in an era of COVID-19, where everything is moving to a virtual platform that is work, education, and social life?
I think it was
I don't know if I should answer this question, but you're asking this question in a time where all of a sudden the consumption of internet has skyrocketed. I mean, over a period, at least I remember in late March, over 5 days, our consumption jumped by 30%, which is abnormal. It's we have not factored this level of consumption over a very short period of time. Now, I would believe that going forward, and due to the fact of COVID-19, there will always be this idea that we have to lessen ourselves in going outside and interacting in the public. So social distancing is a reality. I think we can't deny it, unfortunately. It's, I mean, no one likes it at all to be socially distant. I feel like we're humans, we're made to interact. Yani, socially distance is the complete opposite of who we are as a species, as I think. So going forward, I believe, I try to look at it from a positive sense. So if you do not go to work, you do not consume petrol with your car. If you do not go to work, you do not power on your electricity in your office. If you do not go to work, you did not consume energy in wherever work is. I would like to think that now everything is being consumed in a much more smaller location, which is your home. But now it's a reality where you need to manage yourself with other members of the household. And so you need to establish a routine, a plan where there's a certain level of consumption that is accepted for all. So things like if you think you will give your daughter or your son a tablet or a video game system and they just play on it 24/7. No, this is not what we're saying. There has to be some form of physical activity. But at the same time, I feel like, okay, we're not going outside. We're consuming internet at our house, but still we should live in an environment where we believe that we have consumed less pollution. We have not consumed, but we've added less pollution to the environment. And I think you've read articles and pictures around the world where it shows amazingly that because there has been, let's say, a lockdown or people don't go out, the skies are more clear, the environment is more healthier, the air quality is much healthier. So I recommend heavily that, you know, in view of COVID situation, to stay at home, but consume moderately, consume with care, and have a balance between digital and non-digital aspects. I hope that was answered. The question was answered.
Perhaps I can just add a word concerning balance and sobriety, and it's exactly the point. No one wants to stop just purely to use a new technology, internet. It's not possible. It's not possible. The thing is a question of balance, of being sober, of knowing that we can do things differently, not using, for example, instant messaging all the time, just taking our phone to do phone calls, classical phone calls, to stay in touch with our, you know, beloved people. This is the first thing. And the second thing, don't forget that in terms of environmental impacts, usage is quite slow. What is important, as we mentioned before, is, you know, the manufacturing of devices. What is impacting on the environment is really this part, this manufacturing part. So extend, if there is just one thing to do, and it's not about usage here, it's just extend the life of your device. If you just do that, you will keep the same usage if you want, but if you do that, you will reduce your impact drastically, because, you know, it is this impact which is, you know, between 75 and 80% of the total impact. So perhaps you can, we know that we can do everything. We cannot stop buying devices. We cannot stop using, you know, otherwise we go in a mountain and we live like, you know, it's not possible for everybody. So, but everything is a question of balance.
Thank you.
And choice as well, because, excuse me, Helen, don't forget that you have choice. Nobody is putting you, you know, a gun on your head to tell you, you have to buy this device, you have to buy, because this is a new device, you have to buy it. No, it's up to you to decide, always.
Thank you, Céline. Another question for you, actually, regarding of not replacing the devices when the market provides for you a way to buy a new device with 50% more than the maintenance price. What will be the solution for that? For example, when you fix phone screen.
I think it's the same answer as before. Huh? Don't let, I know that it's important, but don't let the price being the most important metric for you, because it's not the only one. I understand that it's important, but, you know, if you don't want to spend too much money, prefer buying a second-hand device than buying a new one. And if you are engaged for the environment, don't consider the price as being the only criterion. I know that it's important, but I mean, the environment, actually, this is why there are some issues concerning the environment, because we do not include the environmental price in the device price. If we included this, it will be completely different. We really have to consider this impact, this environmental impact, as something very important, and sometimes more important than the price.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question says, if I wish to be a part of this organization to aware all Indians about digital pollution, how can I be part of your projects? So in general, how can a person participate in your projects?
Are you talking about the e-waste, or are you talking about Ibrahim's thing, or?
It was not specified, so yes, you can talk about it as if it was yours. So,
Ibrahim, you want to go ahead and?
Sure. They can contact us at info@kinabahrain.com, and also can contact us at kinabahrain@gmail.com. And also in my presentation later on, I will add our contacts. So whenever they are published to the public, they can also see our emails.
From our end, we're more than happy, Bilax. We're Zain. Just let me know, Ibrahim, if you have anything that you wanted to go out for spreading awareness. We'll be more than happy to
sure
work together. Yeah.
Last question. What happens to the phones that are dropped at the collection point at Zain?
Good question. So we've collected about, so far, just to give you a heads up, a quick heads up background, we've collected about 3 tons already in terms of electronic e-waste, so far. So you bring your device. You have a choice. Either this is a device beyond repair, beyond compare, so they're already completely damaged. There's a collection point. There's a big box. You just drop it there. If you have a question relating to device in terms of deleting or removing the information, there's an extra process that you have to do. And we have a process in relation to that. If you call our call center, they will help you in that front. But the bulk of the people that come, usually they have a damaged or some device that they just do not need. It's an old device. It gets dropped at our collection point. What happens next is Crown Industries. They come by maybe at least every 2 weeks, and they collect the electronic e-waste. Then they take it to their factories in the industrial area just behind Elba. They have an area where they disassemble as much as possible the devices and electronics. So things like plastic and paper is being disassembled. And then in that process, they find a way to crush all the digital, all the hardware, all the circuitry board together in a way that is possible for exports and for shipment. And then I believe we have 2 countries that they get shipped. So Crown Industries work with the various government authority of that country in allowing that shipment to reach them and reach to a specific company there that effectively dismantles and recycles the circuitry, the electronic e-waste. And you're right, unfortunately, there's not a lot of them in the world. There's a few of them, maybe 10 or less companies globally. And so that company takes the equipment, recycles it, and then it's being given back to various electronic companies for reusing of the metal in that sense. And of course, we as Zain, we receive a certification of, I don't know what you call it, an authenticity of some sort to show that all the material that was shipped to this company has been recycled ethically and rightfully. Because when we need to record this somehow, not as waste going out, but electronic waste that has been recycled. And this is information that is required by us as much as required by the Supreme Council for Environment. We'll be doing a video actually about this in our social media very soon. We will actually show you how the journey of an old smartphone, where does it go, what happens to it, and we will be showcasing that very soon.
Thank you very much. I think it's time, it's 6 already. Thank you so much to all of you for being with us for this 2 hours conference. It was extremely interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the speakers for their time, especially Céline, because it's Sunday in France, so we are not supposed to work on Sunday.
It's Sunday and Mother's Day.
So thank you so much, Céline, for coming.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure being with you.
Thank you. So just please send me your presentation so I can share it with everyone. So, and you can watch this conference again on our social media. I will send you also the video so you can share it on your platform as well.
Thank you all. Thank you, Elena, for having me. And I was really glad to have you all. It was very interesting to listen to what you're saying. I'm learning, and I hope I keep learning from you and keep the contact. Thank you for the attendees and for the nice questions. If we didn't answer all of them, we apologize, but some of them were repetitive or were answered through the presentation itself. So we filtered a bit, we apologize. And thank you all, hoping we can have another one. We hope so.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another one with these amazing speakers or more speakers even. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.